I think under Mike Vrabel, I'll say this about him. The Titans had an identity, especially offensively with Derrick Henry. We're going to line up. We're going to go 2 tight ends, and we're going to pound you into submission. There's no identity right now with this Titans offense.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Buffalo Plus YouTube channel presented by Connors and Ferris. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. It's time for our What They're Talking About segment. And this week we are going to Nashville to bring back one of our most popular guests ever. He puts up numbers. That's what we say in the business. Jon Burton set the standard for everybody in the times he's been on with us. He's worked in Buffalo. He knows this market, knows this area, and he certainly knows what's going on in Nashville. Hey, Jon, thanks for being back with us.
Oh, always a pleasure, Mike. Great to see you. Great to talk with you. I'm upstate New York, born and bred, and spent some good years in Buffalo covering the Bills and the Sabres, and I had a great rivalry going with the Rochester rugby team there, the Art.
Yes.
So, we had some battles. So, it's great to talk with you, man.
Yeah, and you got your Yankees hat on. You're all ready?
I'm not touching the money yet. It's funny because people called my radio show this morning, and they were like, "Oh, congratulations on your Yankee." I was like, "Don't congratulate me on anything yet. We still have 2 more wins to get, and then 4 more after that." Jose Ramirez scares me. I don't want him up with anybody on base because he can change the game like that. So just keep things the way they are, and hopefully, we'll just keep everything nice and steady and get to that World Series.
All right. So your radio show, JB and the General, each morning 9 to 11 in Nashville, WNBS, correct?
WNSR.
Nashville I'm sorry, WNSR. And then News Channel 5, sports anchor in News Channel 5 in Nashville. So you cover this team. What the hell's going on with the Titans right now?
Oh, where do I begin, Mike? It obviously starts with the quarterback. Will Levis, in his second year, but his first year as like the established starting quarterback, obviously took over midseason last year, played pretty well under a different regime, but he's his completion percentage is up, but he's turning the ball over way too much. He has at least 1 interception or turnover in every game this year. He leads the NFL in interceptions with 7 to just 5 touchdown passes. And, the offense, Brian Callahan, the new head coach, he can't run the offense the way he wants to do it. We were promised deep shots downfield, big plays, lots of throws, but you've seen it starting in the second half of that Miami game when Levis got hurt. Callahan's resorted to more of a conservative approach offensively, running the ball more, short passes, not a lot of deep shots. And, the biggest problem, I think, with this offense is the lack of targets and big plays from Calvin Ridley. He's a guy that they paid big money for in free agency to come over from Jacksonville. He only has 9 catches on the season, 1 touchdown. He was targeted 8 times last week in the loss to the Colts, 0 catches. Some were on him, some were on Levis. And, I think under Mike Vrabel, I'll say this about him. The Titans had an identity, especially offensively with Derrick Henry. We're going to line up. We're going to go 2 tight ends, and we're going to pound you into submission. There's no identity right now with this Titans offense. The defense has been pretty good. But this offense doesn't seem to have an identity right now, and it's hurting the team. And right now the young quarterback is struggling.
So physically, he's been compared to Josh Allen, and it's tough to get compared to a player, right? It's like you see Caleb Williams get compared to Patrick Mahomes. Now, Williams has shown some really good stuff, but I understand those comparisons. It doesn't mean that is who the player is. It's just there are similarities, maybe physically and all.
Sure.
You've seen Josh Allen his whole career. You've watched him. Do you see any of that in Levis?
Maybe a little bit in terms of the arm strength and the arm talent and the so-called arm arrogance, right? My arm is strong enough I can fit that ball in between 2 defenders. Whereas, with Josh, we've seen it, time and time again. And kind of some of the reckless abandon that Josh played with early in his career in terms of taking off and taking on tacklers and jumping over guys. And, Levis has had to learn the hard way not to do that. Look, the arm talent is there, but the big knock on him right now is decision-making and, quite frankly, leadership. I don't know if the other 10 guys in that huddle right now truly believe in him, and that's a huge problem because I'm sure, as a young quarterback, Josh dealt with that, but there's no question. You watch a Bills game, that's Josh's huddle, especially now that Steph Diggs isn't there anymore. That's Josh's huddle. This is Josh's offense. This is Josh's team. And everybody's in line. And, the results have been really good so far. So, but yeah, the physical, like the arm talent is there. There's no question. But it's you and I have been watching football since Moses wore short pants. And we know it takes more than just physical ability to succeed as a quarterback in the NFL. How many guys have we seen that are just built like Greek gods and they could throw the ball, 100 yards, but it's about accuracy. It's about decision making. It's about throwing on time. And those are some of the things that Will is struggling with right now.
All right. So Callahan comes over. He was with the Bengals. So, Joe Burrow was your quarterback. Mm-hmm. Pretty good.
Yeah.
Will he have the patience, do you think? Is he going to, because he inherited him, right? I mean, he came in as the head coach. This is the guy who's here. He knew that when he took the gig.
That's a big reason why he was hired, Mike.
Yeah.
Because of his work with quarterbacks. They're like, we want you to work with our young quarterback. That's a big reason why he's here. And, and so to answer your question, I mean, I think we're going to find out in the next couple of weeks. The Titans are 1-4. They've got 2 really tough road games coming up back-to-back at Buffalo this week. And then after that, they go to Detroit. And, they're going to be decided underdogs in both games. And if those games don't go well for the Titans and Will Levis does not play well, Brian Callahan's going to have a tough decision to make because he's got a fan base to answer to. He's got an ownership to answer to. And he's got a locker room full of guys to answer to. So it's going to be the fine line. Do I keep Levis in there and continue the clock on his development and perhaps sacrifice wins? Or do I need to get some wins on the board to keep the fans happy and keep my locker room happy?
Yeah. I mean, backup's Mason Rudolph.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I don't think that's the future.
No.
It's more of saying, can he run this offense? Can we see what we have in the rest of the guys? But if you're the Titans and you've invested in Levis, it's kind of hard to pull him out, isn't it? It's kind of hard to just cut the ties and say, because once you bench him, if that is what the case is, I mean, I guess they're doing that in Carolina, but once you do that, it does make it tough to say he's still our guy.
Right. That's a tough sell, right? And let's say they bench him for Mason Rudolph and, he goes all Tommy DeVito with the Giants last year. They win 3 or 4 games. Now you're drafted in the middle of the pack.
Yeah.
And if you've decided that, Levis isn't the guy, you got to be in the position to take your next young quarterback. And so that's a decision that's going to have to be discussed in the front offices behind closed doors too. And, and we don't, and I think you're old school like I am. We don't believe in tanking necessarily, but you and I also both know that in the NFL, if you don't have a quarterback, you can't win. You can win a few games and maybe get to the playoffs, but you're not winning a championship. And that's the ultimate goal. Amy Adams-Strunk made it clear. I want to win a championship here. I want to bring a championship to Nashville. She made a bold move, firing Mike Vrabel at the end of last season, bringing in Brian Callahan, and it's supposed to be his job to develop Will Levis. And you can kind of tell Callahan he may be out of answers because he was asked the other day at his press conference, the day after the game, we were promised all these shots downfield. Where are they? And he was like, well, I guess I could call more shots downfield. I don't know. When a head coach says, I don't know, it's got potential to get ugly down here. So there are going to be some tough decisions to be made between now and the next several weeks. And let me just add this, Mike, as well.
Yeah.
There's no end in sight for this team. They've already had their bye week. So they are playing every Sunday at 12 noon Eastern or 12 noon Central, 1 o'clock Eastern. I think they have one West Coast road game at the Chargers. So they're playing every week, every Sunday between now and early January. And as Jeffrey Simmons said, they're fine defensive tackles. And nobody's coming to save us. And the networks aren't going to flex us, with our record. So it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, the teams that play Sunday at 1 or noon are the teams that they're not expecting a lot out of. You mentioned quotes and you mentioned Calvin Ridley. Bleep is getting crazy. I need some targets at the beginning of the bleeping game.
Yes.
Is what he's saying.
Yes.
Paid him a lot of money. He's out there. I saw the 0 for 8. I saw a cut up of the plays. This is what would concern me if I'm Callahan. The throws were poor, but not every one of them. Ridley looked like you say, sometimes when you're like, I'm really for this, I'm going all out. That would be a worry. And I know what people say. You're playing, you get paid, you go and play. You put your body on the line out there sometimes, and you only got so many snaps in your life. I'm not agreeing with not being all out, but you start losing that in the room, what do you have?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you know what? It kind of speaks to, unfortunately, what a lot of people think is a lack of leadership in that locker room. You know, Jeffrey Simmons is considered, you know, probably the leader of the team. And, you look at the guys they've lost over the last several years, Kevin Byard, and even going back to Jason McCourty and, you know, Brian Arakpo, some of the guys that I'm just thinking off the top of my head. You know, Jeffrey Simmons is supposed to be the leader. He went off on a radio host during training camp. It was cussed him out while he was live on the air. That's not what a leader does. And we love Jeff Simmons. He's a terrific player. But there's not that guy. Like, I remember when Delaney Walker was in that locker room, he was like the Undertaker in the WWE locker room. Nobody messed with him. He was that guy. And so, you know, this is where the leadership has to emerge. This is where guys like Lloyd Cushenberry, who's a new player, starting center, they made him a captain. Kenneth Murray Jr., inside linebacker, you know, new guy, they made him a captain. And, you know, Levis or whoever, and DeAndre Hopkins. These guys are going to have to step up and really do a good job of keeping that locker room, everybody on the same page. Because, like I said, you start losing, and the way that they're losing, it's got potential, like I said, to get really ugly.
All right, so they're going to trade DeAndre Hopkins, aren't they?
I would think.
His contract's coming up. Would you ask them, do us a favor in Buffalo, don't trade him to the Chiefs? Can you do that? Because you just know they're sitting out there. They saw the Bills get Cooper. They saw the Jets get Adams.
Mm-hmm.
And look, they could, you know, they've brought a lot of guys in. They've had injuries. I think they need something there. But if you have Hopkins, I mean, I think his contract's up, right? The end of the
year. Really, the biggest reason, Mike, he signed here is because last year the Titans were the only team to offer him a multi-year contract. Everybody offered him a one-year deal. Vrabel was desperate. It was late in the offseason. He didn't want to start a rebuild just yet, which is a big reason why he's not here anymore, I think. And he, you know, pounded his fist and said, we need to go get D-Hop, and they added another year. So, yeah, he's probably not in their future plans. So he, you know, I would say after the Detroit game, I think things will heat up about him possibly being traded. The thing about him is, you know, he's north of 30, still a really good wide receiver, probably the second greatest contested catch guy in history behind Randy Moss.
Yeah.
Not a burner, but a guy that runs great routes, gets open, understands coverages and how to, you know, divert his routes based on what he sees once the ball is snapped. And he'd be an outstanding weapon for Patrick Mahomes. Scary. Yeah,
if they end up making that deal. Running the ball. I mean, the Bills have struggled against the run in the past. They have Tony Pollard. I see the numbers, 4.3. The numbers as a team are not great. Can they run the ball? Is it? I mean, if I'm looking right, I think they're 32nd passing yardage, 31st in overall yardage. I think it was 23rd in rushing yardage. Mm-hmm. Can they run the ball?
Well, they're going to need to, right? Because you can't rely on Will Levis to drop back 35 times and take a 5 or 7 step drop and, you know, go 4 wide or whatever and try to wing the ball all over the field. You know, if you had Josh Allen, you could do that. So, yeah, listen, it was supposed to be kind of a dividing thing between Tony Pollard and Tyjae Spears, who they drafted last year. And, you know, Pollard's been good. He had a good game the other day. I think he had 86 yards, whatever it was, had a nice touchdown run. He's the lead back by a nose over Tyjae Spears. But what we thought we were going to see, now that Derrick Henry isn't here anymore, we thought we'd see more screens, wheel routes, short passes to the running backs, kind of like a long handoff. You and I remember the old San Francisco 49er Bill Walsh West Coast offense days with Roger Craig and, you know, that kind of thing. That's what we thought we were going to see. They tried to do that a little bit more in the Colts game. So they can run the ball, to answer your question, as long as they're running to the left side. They've got, you know, Peter Skoronski, the left guard, second-year guy, is doing very well. And they drafted J.C. Latham out of Alabama, who's their starting left tackle, who's graded out pretty well in the first 5 games. And, you know, they found something running to the left side in that win over Miami on the Monday night. So they can run the ball. It's just a matter of, will they stick to it, and which running back gets hot? And whoever gets hot will probably get the majority of the carries.
Defensively, the numbers are good.
Mm-hmm.
Are they good? I mean, because sometimes I'm looking at how, 17, 4 offensively, 14, 17, except for the Miami game. Obviously, they're not scoring a lot of points, so you don't need to give up. You give up in the 20s, for the most part, they're going to lose, is what has happened. Is this defense good? Is this defense one that could hold up against an offense like the Bills that is, and now has added Cooper and has gotten better?
Yeah, potentially they can because of their ability against the run. They do a good job against the run. They got Tavondre Sweat, the big man out of Texas. Yep. That guy's huge.
Yeah.
And then you have Jeffrey Simmons, who's probably his dominant days are behind him, but he's still darn good. He's dealing with an elbow injury. Actually, he said last week, if I were a pitcher, I'd have to have Tommy John surgery. So he's playing hurt. He's being a warrior out there. So they can clog the middle. They can clog the A gap. Their linebackers are pretty good. Ernest Jones is a guy that they traded for right at the end of training camp from the LA Rams. And you watch this guy play. I don't know. I have no idea why the Rams are letting this guy go. And then they signed Kenneth Murray Jr. from the Chargers. So they're pretty good against the run. They've got L'Jarius Sneed on one side of the corner, and then Chido Awuzie from the Bengals was supposed to be the other corner, but he's been banged up. And they've been starting a rookie, Jarvis Brownlee Jr., who's actually played pretty well. And their safeties are good with Amani Hooker and Quandre Diggs. So, this is a solid defense. They can, Denard Wilson, their new defensive coordinator, he seems to know when to be aggressive and when to hang back. But what was really, really telling, I think, in the Colts game was the fact that you had old man Flacco back there, and the Titans couldn't register a sack.
Yeah.
And, he is not nearly as mobile as Josh Allen is, as we know. I mean, a tree is more mobile than Joe Flacco. So that was kind of a head scratcher, the fact that he couldn't get Flacco on the ground the other day. And so if that's the case this week, it could be a long day.
I see 9 total sacks. Landry has 4 of those.
Mm-hmm.
Harold Landry, just 1 forced fumble, 1 interception. So they're not flipping the field. And
they're not turning the ball over. That's
and this offense is going to need that, right?
Yeah,
they're going to need field position.
Yes, I mean they are going to have to make life easy on their offense. You mentioned it, just 2 turnovers total on the year, and the 1 fumble recovery was kind of a fluke because it was a backwards pass in the Monday night game that the Dolphins didn't bother to jump on, and then I think it was Arden Key or whoever it was jumped on it for the Titans. And, the interception was by Amani Hooker last week, just on a bad overthrow by Flacco. And, Hooker was just sitting back there in cover 2. And, it was an early Christmas gift for him. So they haven't, so in terms of punching the ball out or tipping balls at the line of scrimmage to get intercepted, we haven't seen that at all. Both turnovers that they've forced have been kind of lucky, to be honest with you. So, but you're 100% right. They will need to generate some turnovers on Sunday if they hope to, win or stay in it.
Yeah. Where is the fan base with this team?
They're growing impatient because, that it ruffled a lot of feathers when Amy Adams Strunk, the controlling owner, fired Mike Vrabel. I mean, now they had a couple of bad seasons back to back, but the fans felt with Vrabel here, at least we have an identity, right? When they were running the ball behind Taylor Lewan and Roger Saffold, and with Derrick Henry, we had an identity. We were physical. We're going to play physical. We're going to run the ball. We're going to play action, take some deep shots with A.J. Brown after that. And I think a lot of people are questioning, what is going on with this team in terms of, they fire Mike Vrabel. They give Rand Carthon, the GM, added duties. He's the vice president now. He's in charge of the coaching staff. He's in charge of the roster. And that's a big reason why Vrabel isn't here anymore, because he didn't feel like Rand Carthon was capable of doing, taking on all that responsibility. So I think a lot of people are wondering, what is the direction of this team? Because we got a new stadium we're supposed to be opening up in a few years. And I know the idea for the organization is to be competitive, ready to win by the time that stadium opens. And, they may be a year or 2 off track as far as that goes. So they're not angry per se. It's just the South. People are laid back, and, their Saturdays are just as important down here as Sundays are. So people are keeping an eye on Tennessee. The Vols are ranked, 11th in the country, and Vanderbilt's been one of the pleasant surprises of the college football season.
Yeah.
They're coming off back-to-back big wins over Alabama and Kentucky. So they love their Saturdays down here with the SEC just as much as Sundays. So I think, there's the fans aren't angry, but they're just kind of like, what the hell is going on? Where are we going? And, they're searching for answers.
Yeah, and when you're building a new stadium, and I wanted to ask you about that. I mean, the last thing you want is fans who sort of start checking out. I mean, you need them involved. Obviously, this game's in Orchard Park, but a lot of Bills fans love to go to Nashville when there are games there. I saw some of the stuff about the stadium. People know it's right there across the river from the Broadway and all that. Are they building right there? Is that where it's going to be, right where the stadium is?
Yeah, right where the old stadium or the current stadium is where the new stadium will be. And, I'm sure you see some of the renderings and stuff like that. It's going to be an incredible place. I mean, not only for football, but, every major event wants to have their event here in Nashville. So, I mean, we're talking probably college football championship game, WrestleMania, NCAA Final Four, whatever you want, whatever you can name, it's probably going to come here once that thing. And they're even talking Super Bowl as well at some point. So, I'll have a hard time believing that the infrastructure could handle the Super Bowl, but I've been told by people who know a lot more about it than I do, within the city rankings, that they can get it done. So, but yeah, I mean, you want to be up, you want to be winning, you want to be ready to go, ready to win by the time that thing gets built, or people are going to be, because I've already heard some fans complain about, the increase in the PSLs and the ticket prices and stuff like that. All that's going up. I mean, you and I have seen it for decades.
Yeah, it's happening here. Yep. It's what's going on in Buffalo. People are seeing the numbers. Now, you got Josh Allen and a winning team is trying to sell the suites, sell the PSLs, sell all that stuff. And you see the place going up and it's going to be there. They got one more season after this one in the current high mark before they move over there. It's nice to have that. So to me, I mean, that's the point where, to me, I would think, like, if Levis is not the guy, they got to be ready to go out and find somebody.
Yes.
They got to, whether it's in the draft, maybe Deion's kid, who knows, depending on what the season goes like, right?
Deion and Shador on Broadway. Let's do it. That would be something. So, yeah, but to your point, I think that decision has to come sooner rather than later, whereas a lot of teams will say, all right, well, let's see if we can build better around it, get them some more weapons. I mean, me being a Giants fan, they've been doing it for 6 years with Daniel Jones. I think they're finally now realizing, it's probably time to move off of them. You've seen it, Mike. Teams make these decisions on their quarterbacks quick. Sam Rosen out after a year in Arizona. Kenny Pickett didn't even last a year and a half in Pittsburgh. And I used to cover the Steelers. They are the most stay by the book, stability franchise in all of football. They've had 3 head coaches since 1969. The third one's still there, and he's not going anywhere. And they realize, all right, Kenny Pickett's not the guy. We got to move on. So these decisions are coming a lot quicker, and the Titans need to realize that is something that if the decision is made across the board, Levis isn't the guy, they need to act quickly with the new stadium coming.
Yeah. And look, they'll have a coach they think can handle a quarterback. He's got to be on board with them, or otherwise it's not going to work. I always ask this. I ask it every time you're on. This is a team that is struggling. The Bills are coming off a big win. They just had 3 in a row. This is on the road. This is their first time at home. For the Titans to come in, a team that's been struggling, trying to get things together, what's the game plan to try to pull off the upset against the Bills?
Offensively, just be ugly and boring. Run the ball, keep the third downs manageable, and take as much pressure off Will Levis as possible. Stay out of second and third and long, because that's when trouble can happen. So run the football, try to take the crowd out of it. Defensively, got to get some turnovers. Got to get a couple of turnovers, and maybe a big play on special teams. They got a rookie kick returner in Jackson who had a couple of exciting plays during the preseason. Maybe he gets a hold of a punt and returns it 60, 70 yards or something like that. They're going to need some big-time special plays in all 3 phases to pull this off.
Yeah. I mean, the Bills, there's going to be some excitement. We're thinking Amari Cooper should be ready to go, get him on the field. The one issue for the Bills, you mentioned special teams. Tyler Bass, the kicker, has not been strong, and there's a lot of concerns about that. So if the game
we've seen that across the league, right, Mike?
Yeah.
A lot of kickers are struggling.
Yeah. I saw Green Bay just made a change at their kicker and all, too. A lot of people wondering if that's going to happen with the Bills.
And that kicker that they're moving on from was here in the preseason. I think he hit like a 62-yarder in a preseason game.
Yeah, it is kind of wild how many are high 50s or 60s. I mean, the Bills lost to Fairbairn, who made one in Houston from 57. It probably would have been good from 65. So
I was watching that game. He nailed it. I was in Vegas watching that game at the sports book.
Yeah. Yeah, I imagine there's a lot of reaction.
Half the people cheered. The other people were, throwing their drinks on the floor.
It's typical Vegas, right? All right. So while this week is going on, let everybody know where they can follow you both on social and on the air.
Appreciate that. Yeah. Twitter X is at Jon Burton 3234. Instagram is at Jon Burton 32. And you can check out the JB and the General show every weekday morning, 9 a.m. Central Time to 11 a.m. Central Time with my great partner, the General Patton Cook. So that's where the name comes from. It just popped in my head one day. And, looking forward to getting back up to Western New York this weekend. And hopefully I'll get a chance to say hello to you and all the guys. And, let me just say this. I just want to give a shout out to my guy, the great John Murphy. I worked with him in Buffalo at Channel 7. And, you talk about a mentor in my life and in my career. It doesn't come any better than Murph. And hopefully I'll get a chance to see him as well. And, I just want to give a shout out to him and Mary and the boys. And I mean, I can't say enough about him, man. He is the best.
Yep. For a long time in Buffalo radio and certainly at Channel 7 and Channel 4 and a great broadcaster for the Bills. So, and you used to work with him. So as we say, John, a former Buffalo reporter at Channel 7, now at Channel 5 in Nashville. And you heard about his radio show, JB and the General. Always a lot of fun. We look forward to this every time the Bills take on the Titans. We will see you in the press box coming up this weekend. Looking forward to it. Again, John, thanks for being with us.
Thanks, Mike. Go Yankees.
We'll see what happens in that. And who knows beyond that for the Yankees if it keeps going. Hey, to all of you, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And remember, we'll be Thursday night, 7:15 Eastern with our live podcast with Jenna, Dan, and myself. Thanks for watching to the Buffalo Plus channel on YouTube and wherever you listen to your podcast. And we'll see you next time on Buffalo Plus.